A lost library of ancient wisdom could be waiting under the Great Sphinx. For thousands of years, whispers of a secret chamber and a legendary hall of records have captivated explorers and defied explanation. This is one of archaeology's most enduring puzzles. By the end of this journey, you will understand the full, fascinating story behind this mystery, from prophetic visions to cutting-edge science. We will follow the clues left by an ancient historian, explore the startling claims of a modern mystic, and examine the hard data that hints at hidden voids beneath the stone. What did the builders truly intend to protect for eternity, and why has finding it proven so difficult? The answer could change everything we know about our past. What does a civilization choose to bury forever? Its gaze is fixed on the horizon, a silent sentinel carved from the living bedrock. The Great Sphinx is not simply a statue we visit. It is an experience we encounter, a presence that has dominated the Giza plateau for what feels like time itself. But to understand the whispers of a hidden chamber, we must first listen to what the monument itself is trying to tell us. The ancient Egyptians knew it as Horus of the horizon, a name that fuses the divine with the celestial. This was no casual title. Horus, the sky god, was a protector, a ruler who maintained cosmic order. By aligning the Sphinx's lion body to face the rising sun on the equinox, the builders may have been doing more than creating art. They were programming a guardian. Some researchers point to a fascinating astronomical correlation that around the time of its traditional construction, the sun rose in the constellation of Leo, the lion, directly in front of the Sphinx's lion form. This creates a powerful symbolic loop, a stone lion greeting a celestial lion, a guardian aligned with the very fabric of the heavens. Its purpose, then, seems woven into the stars to stand watch over something of profound importance. This leads to the most visible clue etched into its body, the deep, rolling erosion patterns on its flanks and the walls of the enclosure that surrounds it. Mainstream archaeology attributes this weathering to wind and sand over millennia. Yet, other scientists have long argued this particular pattern, with its undulating, vertical channels, closely resembles the effects of heavy water erosion from prolonged and substantial rainfall. The last time the Giza region experienced rainfall of that magnitude was over 7,000 years ago, a period long before the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, to whom the Sphinx is traditionally dated. If this theory holds, the Sphinx could be a relic of a much older, perhaps forgotten epoch, a guardian set in place long before the pyramids themselves rose beside it. This isn't just about age, it's about intention. Why would a civilization, possibly predating dynastic Egypt, go to such extraordinary lengths to carve this leonine watcher from a single ridge of stone? Perhaps because they needed a symbol of permanent, unyielding protection. The Sphinx doesn't just sit on the sand, it is fused with the bedrock, a literal part of the earth. This fusion is the most compelling clue of all. It suggests the monument was never meant to be separate from what lies below. The guardian and the vault, if it exists, are one single, interconnected structure. The true secret of the Sphinx, therefore, might not be written on its face, but locked in the silence of the ground beneath its immense, timeless paws. In a quiet room in Virginia, a man lies down, closes his eyes, and enters a trance. His name is Edgar Cayce, and in the early decades of the 20th century, he would earn the nickname the Sleeping Prophet. While in these self-induced states, Cayce delivered thousands of psychic readings on topics from health to history, but none captured the imagination like his statements about Egypt. With startling specificity, he described a hidden library of knowledge buried beneath the sands of Giza. He called it the Hall of Records. According to Cayce, this was no ordinary tomb, but a sealed chamber containing the complete history of a lost civilization, the legendary Atlantis, recorded on indestructible crystalline tablets. He even gave precise directions, stating the entrance lay beneath the right forepaw of the Sphinx, concealed behind a hinged stone door. Perhaps most tantalizing was his prediction of its discovery, a timeline that pointed toward the turn of the millennium, a date that would fuel expeditions for decades. Cayce's descriptions went beyond simple archaeology. He spoke of advanced technology and spiritual wisdom waiting to be rediscovered, a time capsule meant to guide humanity through a future period of great change. This visionary framework created a powerful contrast. Mainstream archaeology seeks physical evidence, pottery shards and inscriptions, while Cayce's legacy introduced a metaphysical dimension, a search for lost wisdom rather than just lost objects. His influence cannot be overstated. Devoted followers, convinced by his detailed visions, provided funding and impetus for some of the earliest serious ground surveys at Giza, directly linking spiritual belief to physical exploration. They helped cement the legend of the Hall of Records in popular culture, transforming it from a vague myth into a specific destination. This raises a profound and lingering question for us to consider. Were Edgar Cayce's vivid descriptions merely the product of a creative subconscious, weaving together contemporary fascination with Atlantis and Egyptology? Or could they represent intuitive glimpses, a kind of spiritual echo, of a genuine archaeological truth still waiting in the dark? Regardless of one's personal belief, his legacy forged an unshakable bridge, ensuring that the quest for the chamber would forever be a journey pursued with both spades and soul, setting the stage for the more tangible technological hunts that were soon to follow. Yet the sands of Giza hold more than one secret, and not every discovery comes from a psychic vision. Sometimes the truth is found by following the meticulous, dust-covered path of traditional archaeology. This brings us to the work of Dr. Zahi Hawass, a name synonymous with Egyptian excavation, and a figure who has long championed evidence over speculation. His focus was not on legendary halls but on a tangible, deeply buried structure known today as the Osiris shaft. Discovered in the plateau near the Sphinx, this is not a simple tunnel, but a remarkable feat of ancient engineering, a vertical shaft plunging down through solid bedrock to 3 distinct submerged levels. The first level is a chamber cut into the rock. The second level is completely flooded with groundwater, a silent, water-filled space. And the third, deepest level is the most compelling, housing an empty granite sarcophagus resting on a small island, surrounded by that same dark, still water. For Dr. Hawass, this was a monumental find, a complex likely used for ceremonial purposes connected to Osiris, the god of the afterlife and rebirth. The layout itself tells a story, a symbolic journey downwards, mirroring the myth of Osiris descending into the underworld. The presence of the sarcophagus, though empty, suggests this may have been a ritual site, a place where symbolic burial rites were performed to honor the god and ensure cosmic order. Hawass presented this as the grounded counter-narrative to the Hall of Records, a real archaeological treasure that reflects the profound spiritual practices of the Egyptians, not the lost technology of Atlantis. He emphasized a crucial point that every claim must be backed by the pottery shards, the inscriptions, the stratigraphy, the hard evidence you can hold in your hand. This is the bedrock of responsible discovery, and yet the existence of the Osiris shaft, this incredibly deep, multi-layered construction hidden beneath the desert, does something unexpected. It inadvertently fuels the very mystery it seeks to clarify. If the ancient builders went to such extraordinary lengths to carve out this deep, symbolic underworld, what does that say about their capability and their motivation? Could a structure this complex truly be an isolated project, or does its presence hint at a broader pattern of subterranean work? The official narrative provides a satisfying, evidence-based answer, but in doing so, it opens a deeper, more tantalizing line of inquiry. Is the Osiris shaft the final destination, or merely one profound chamber in a vast, uncharted network waiting in the dark? The legends were compelling, but legends alone cannot move stone. To find what is hidden, you must learn to listen to the earth itself. This is the domain of geophysical surveys, a high-tech form of listening where scientists send silent pulses of energy into the ground and wait for the echoes to return. Imagine a doctor using an ultrasound to see a developing child, but instead of a patient, the machine is scanning the bedrock beneath the Sphinx. That is the principle of ground-penetrating radar. Waves of energy travel down, and when they hit a boundary between materials like solid rock and an open cavity, they bounce back with a different signature. It is a non-invasive way to peek into the planet's past without ever lifting a shovel. This quiet technological hunt began in earnest in the 1970s. A team from Stanford Research Institute, using advanced seismographs, conducted a survey around the Sphinx. Their data suggested something startling, not just one, but several anomalies beneath the monument. They pointed to a possible cavity under the front paws, and perhaps more intriguingly, indications of a larger, rectangular space behind the northern side of the statue. These were not claims of a golden hall, but cold, hard data points on a graph, whispers of emptiness in a place that should be solid. The quest continued decades later with a comprehensive survey by Waseda University in Japan. Their work, using a combination of radar and electromagnetic wave techniques, seemed to corroborate earlier hints. Their maps showed not only potential voids around the Sphinx, but also what appeared to be a tunnel running south from the monument, possibly connecting to the nearby second pyramid. For those searching for the Hall of Records, these scientific echoes were electrifying. They transformed a mystical idea into a series of measurable, physical questions. Was the rectangular anomaly a natural fissure, or the roof of a man-made chamber? Could the cavity under the paws be the entrance Edgar Cayce had described? Yet science thrives on skepticism as much as discovery. Every anomaly has alternative explanations. Geologists rightly caution that what looks like a carved room on a radar scan could be a pocket of softer sedimentary rock, a natural void formed by ancient water flow, or a fracture in the limestone bedrock. The data provides a shadow, a suggestion of shape, but it cannot tell us what created that shape. This is the delicate balance of the search. The evidence is compelling enough to warrant intense curiosity, but not yet definitive enough to declare a find. These surveys have done something profound, however. They have drawn a map of the possible. They have given the legends coordinates. The challenge that remains is the final, definitive step, to take those coordinates and see, with human eyes, what truly lies in the silent dark beneath the Guardian's gaze. But sometimes the most promising clues are not hidden in deep chambers or seen only on radar screens. They are carved into the monument itself, waiting in plain sight. On the northern flank of the Sphinx, high up on its rump, there is a rectangular niche cut neatly into the limestone. It looks like a small, shallow doorway, a feature so deliberate it has fueled speculation for over a century. This is not a legend or an anomaly on a graph. It is a physical fact, a tangible piece of the puzzle you could theoretically reach out and touch. It was first properly documented during major restoration efforts in the 1920s, when workers cleared centuries of accumulated sand and debris from the statue's base. The discovery immediately sparked debate. What was its purpose? Some archaeologists proposed a practical explanation, that it was an access point for ancient repair crews to reach the interior of the structure for maintenance. Others suggested it might have been a ventilation shaft for the original builders, allowing air to circulate as they worked on the core of the monument. But the most tantalizing theory, of course, was that this small opening was the beginning of a passage, a sealed corridor leading down into the heart of the plateau, perhaps toward the fabled hall itself. The romance of this idea was irresistible, a literal door in the side of the Guardian. In the 1980s, researchers had a chance to investigate directly. Using a flexible fiber optic camera, they snaked a lens through the opening, hoping to see a tunnel descending into darkness. What they found was both definitive and deeply frustrating. The niche extended inward only a short distance, perhaps a meter or two, before ending abruptly in a solid wall of rock. It was a small, empty space that went nowhere. This investigation seemed to close the door, quite literally, on one avenue of the mystery. Yet, like so much at Giza, a simple answer only breeds more complex questions. Why go to the effort of carving such a precise, symmetrical feature high up on the statue if it served no lasting function? Could it be the sealed top of a shaft that was filled in antiquity, the true depth hidden behind that final wall of stone? Or does it represent something else entirely, a symbolic false door common in Egyptian tombs, meant not for the living to enter, but for the spirit of the guardian to pass through? This small niche is a perfect microcosm of the entire search. It represents that cycle of discovery and ambiguity, where every solid clue dissolves into questions upon closer inspection. It teaches a vital lesson that the path to truth here is not through grand leaps, but through the patient, meticulous scrutiny of every stone, every carving, every seemingly insignificant detail. The real entrance, if it exists, may not look like a door at all. Perhaps the greatest treasure is not something you can hold in your hand, but something you carry in your mind. What if the Hall of Records was never a physical room at all? This idea shifts the entire search from archaeology to philosophy, inviting us to consider the ancient Egyptian reverence for knowledge itself as the ultimate, imperishable treasure. Their pantheon included Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, magic, and the written word. He was considered the scribe of the gods, the inventor of language and science, the keeper of all divine knowledge. Legends speak of the books of Thoth, mystical texts containing the secrets of the universe, knowledge so powerful it could grant the reader command over the heavens and the earth. This was not information to be filed away, it was a transformative force. In this cultural context, a hall of records would be less like a library and more like a sacred sanctuary for initiation, where profound truths were passed not through books, but through direct experience, oral tradition, and meticulously encoded symbolism. The architecture of Giza itself becomes a potential candidate for this living record. The precise alignment of the pyramids with celestial bodies, the mathematical ratios embedded in their dimensions, the very orientation of the Sphinx toward the equinox sunrise, these are not random choices. They form a silent language, a three-dimensional text written in stone and aligned with the stars. For centuries, scholars in the Hermetic tradition, inspired by ancient Egyptian thought, pursued the idea of a Prisca theologia, a single, pristine theology handed down from a primordial time. They believed this original wisdom was deliberately concealed within myths, symbols, and sacred sites, waiting to be decoded by those with the eyes to see. From this perspective, the entire Giza plateau transforms. It is not merely a necropolis, but a vast, open-air classroom, a cosmological diagram etched into the desert. The search for a hidden chamber, then, becomes a powerful metaphor for our own journey of understanding. Are we digging for a room, or are we seeking to decipher a message? The true record may have been in front of us all along, not buried in darkness, but standing in the open light, its lessons written in the geometry of a pyramid slope and the patient gaze of a guardian facing eternity. This invites a quiet, personal reflection. Is our fascination with a hidden door a distraction from the deeper, more challenging task of learning to read the monumental scripture the builders left behind? The stone itself tells a story if you know how to read its language. Look closely at the walls of the pit surrounding the Sphinx, at those deep, undulating grooves that run vertically down the limestone. To the untrained eye, they are simply marks of great age, but to a geologist, they are a specific kind of signature, a text written by the elements. The mainstream view has long held that these patterns are the work of millennia of wind-blown sand and occasional, mild precipitation. It is a logical explanation for a monument sitting in a desert. Yet in the early 1990s, a Boston University geologist named Dr. Robert Schoch presented a radically different interpretation. After examining the weathering firsthand, he argued that these distinctive, rolling profiles could not have been carved by sand. Sand, he noted, erodes horizontally, scouring away at the stone in sheets. These were vertical channels, gullies, and fissures that cut deeply into the rock. Their form, he insisted, was textbook. This was the unmistakable fingerprint of water, and not just a little water, but torrential, prolonged rainfall over a vast stretch of time. This single observation, grounded in the hard science of rock mechanics, would ignite one of the most heated debates in modern archaeology. For if Dr. Schoch was correct, the timeline of human history had a profound gap in it. The last period when the Giza Plateau experienced a climate wet enough to produce such erosion ended around the middle of the 4th millennium BC, a period that could push the Sphinx's origins back to 5000 BC or even earlier. Other researchers analyzing the evidence have suggested dates as astonishing as 10,000 BCE. This is not a minor adjustment, it is a seismic shift. It places the Sphinx's creation not in the age of the pyramid builders, but in a shadowy epoch at the very dawn of the current geological age, a time when humanity was supposedly in its hunter-gatherer infancy. The implications are staggering. It suggests the work of a sophisticated, organized society that has left no other clear trace in the conventional archaeological record, a pre-pharaonic civilization with the knowledge, the manpower, and the motive to execute one of the world's most iconic sculptures. The academic pushback was immediate and fierce. Egyptologists pointed to the lack of any cultural artifacts from that earlier period at the site. They argued that localized runoff or even the chemical effects of mourning could have produced the patterns. The debate became a classic clash of disciplines, the slow language of geology against the cultural context of archaeology. But for those captivated by the legend of a hidden chamber, Schoch's water erosion hypothesis provided something crucial, a plausible historical framework. If a forgotten civilization did exist and flourish in that distant, wetter age, what might it have known? And if it saw a cataclysmic climate shift coming, the desert reclaiming its lands, what would it choose to preserve? The idea of a hall of records transforms from a mystical prophecy into a logical act of preservation. A society facing its own end might very well encode its greatest knowledge in an indestructible form and place it under the protection of a guardian carved to last for eternity. This theory does more than redate a statue, it recontextualizes the entire mystery. The search for a chamber beneath the paws becomes a search for evidence of this lost chapter, a physical key to a door in time. The water on the stones whispers of a world that faded away, leaving behind a single, silent sentinel and a question etched as deeply as the erosion channels themselves. What were they trying to tell us? But the most definitive answer may not come from the earth at all. It might come from the sky, or more precisely, from the constant rain of cosmic particles that shower down upon us every moment. This is the frontier of Muon tomography, a technology that sounds like science fiction but is now a powerful archaeological tool. To understand it, picture the world at a subatomic level. Cosmic rays from deep space constantly collide with our atmosphere, creating a shower of secondary particles called muons. These muons are like tiny, natural X-rays. They pass effortlessly through solid objects, but denser materials will absorb or deflect more of them. By placing special detectors around a structure, like the Sphinx or a pyramid, scientists can measure the flux of muons passing through. Areas where more muons get through indicate less density, a potential void or chamber. Areas where fewer muons arrive signal solid rock. Over time, these millions of data points can be assembled into a detailed three-dimensional density map, a ghostly internal blueprint of the monument without ever touching a stone. The proof of concept is already stunningly real. The International Scan Pyramids mission, using muography and other non-invasive techniques, made global headlines when it detected a large, cathedral-sized void deep within the Great Pyramid of Giza, a space unknown for over 4,000 years. This was not speculation, it was a measurable, repeatable scientific discovery. The success there makes the potential application around the Sphinx almost irresistible. Imagine arrays of muon detectors silently collecting data for months around the enclosure, slowly building up a complete picture of every density variation in the bedrock beneath the Guardian's paws. It could, in theory, confirm the existence of the rectangular anomaly behind the northern flank, map the true extent of any cavity under the forepaws, or reveal a network of tunnels with a clarity ground-penetrating radar can only dream of. This is where hard science directly confronts ancient legend, with the power to provide a definitive yes or no. Yet this incredible power brings with it a profound and quiet responsibility. If the muon maps one day reveal an unambiguous man-made chamber of significant size, a sealed space that has gone untouched for millennia, what do we do next? The temptation to drill, to excavate, to finally see with our own eyes would be overwhelming. But this is also a question of preservation and respect. Could the very act of opening such a space destroy what it has preserved for so long? The humidity, the bacteria, the modern air rushing in could damage irreplaceable artifacts or delicate records in an instant. The future of this search, therefore, may lie in a delicate balance, using 21st century particles to see into the past, while relying on 21st century wisdom to decide if and how we should ever open the door. The answer may be found not with shovels, but with patience and a profound respect for the silence we are trying to understand. The search for truth at Giza is not only a journey into the earth, but also a delicate navigation through a modern labyrinth of rules and permissions. To swing a pick or set up a radar array in the shadow of the Sphinx, you need more than funding and a compelling theory. You require the official blessing of the Egyptian state, a process governed by the Supreme Council of Antiquities. This body holds ultimate authority over every stone and grain of sand at the nation's historic sites, a responsibility that balances groundbreaking research with the immense pressures of cultural stewardship and a vital tourism economy. Their mandate is profound: to protect irreplaceable heritage from damage, looting, or irresponsible exploration, a duty taken with the utmost seriousness. For any foreign researcher, this creates a complex landscape. Proposals undergo intense scrutiny, not just for scientific merit, but for their potential impact on the site's integrity and the prevailing historical narrative. High-profile theories, especially those challenging established timelines or suggesting unverified chambers, often face an uphill battle. Conservative academic priorities within the system can view such ideas with deep skepticism, seeing them as speculative distractions from the meticulous, incremental work of traditional archaeology. The story of researcher John Anthony West powerfully illustrates this human drama behind the science. In the late 1980s, West sought to test the controversial water erosion hypothesis at the Sphinx. His proposal to conduct geological surveys was initially met with firm resistance, his ideas considered too radical by the authorities of the time. It was only through persistent negotiation, the involvement of a respected academic sponsor, and a media spotlight that a permit was grudgingly granted for a limited, non-invasive study. This struggle is not unique, it is a fundamental part of the quest. Every ground-penetrating radar scan, every muon detector placed, exists only because a permit was won through a blend of diplomacy, patience, and proven methodology. This bureaucratic reality shapes the mystery itself, determining what questions get asked, what technologies get deployed, and ultimately what can be found. It forces us to consider a larger, quieter question: who controls the narrative of our shared human past? Is it the institutions tasked with guarding it, the researchers striving to reinterpret it, or the public captivated by its unsolved chapters? This modern puzzle, woven from paperwork and protocols, is as intricate as any ancient riddle, reminding us that the past is not simply buried in sand. It is also carefully, and sometimes contentiously, managed in the present. The Sphinx is a mirror, reflecting not just the sun but the deepest questions of those who stand before it. When official archaeology offers no definitive answers, imagination rushes in to fill the silence, painting the hidden chamber with colors far beyond the earthly palette. Among the most popular are the ancient astronaut theories, which reimagine the Hall of Records not as a human archive, but as a celestial one. In this view, the chamber becomes a library left by advanced extraterrestrial visitors, a repository of star maps and cosmic technology meant to guide a primitive humanity. The Sphinx itself is sometimes reinterpreted as a landing beacon or a monument built to honor these otherworldly teachers, its leonine form representing a constellation they came from. This narrative speaks to a powerful human yearning, a desire to connect our origins to a grand, interstellar story, to believe we were seeded with purpose by a higher intelligence. Another strand of speculation ventures into the realm of ancient energy science. Here, theorists propose that the entire Giza plateau, with the Sphinx at its heart, functions as a sophisticated power grid. The hidden chamber in this model might house a crystalline generator or a resonant device, tapping into the Earth's natural magnetic fields or acoustic properties. It becomes less a library and more a machine, a piece of lost technology that harnessed the planet's own vitality. Then there is the poignant concept of the time capsule. This idea strips away both aliens and machinery, returning to a profoundly human impulse, the need to send a message forward. Imagine a civilization, aware of its own impending decline, carefully selecting its core truths, its history, its warnings, and its hopes. They would encase this knowledge in the most durable materials they could conceive and place it under the most permanent guardian they could build, not for their contemporaries, but for us. It is a letter cast into the deep well of time, addressed to a future generation they believed would be ready to understand it. While these theories exist far outside the boundaries of peer-reviewed science, they are an undeniable part of the Sphinx's modern legacy. They flourish in the fertile ground between known facts. They show us that the monument's true power may not be in what it hides, but in what it inspires. It acts as a blank canvas, and what we project onto it reveals our own hopes for contact, our fears of lost greatness, and our enduring need to believe that our past holds a key to a more enlightened future. This vibrant spectrum of speculation, from the cosmic to the deeply human, highlights the delicate boundary all explorers of Giza must navigate. It is the line between what we can measure in the stone and what we feel in our bones, between evidence-based inquiry and the timeless, magnetic pull of a mystery that refuses to be solved. While explorers scanned the desert, another kind of search was unfolding in candlelit rooms across Europe and America. In the 18th and 19th centuries, a powerful fascination with ancient Egypt swept through Western esoteric circles, finding a home within secretive societies like the Freemasons and the Rosicrucians. For these groups, the pyramids and the Sphinx were not distant ruins but living symbols, a sacred geometry encoded with universal truth. They believed their own rites and teachings were not inventions but rediscoveries, direct descendants of the original Egyptian mystery schools, those protected institutions where initiates were guided through layers of symbolic knowledge toward spiritual enlightenment. In this worldview, the Sphinx was the ultimate emblem of this concealed wisdom. Its hybrid form, part human and part lion, represented the fusion of intellect and nature, the divine and the earthly, a riddle guarding the threshold to higher understanding. To pass the Sphinx was to solve the riddle of oneself. This symbolic adoption created a powerful cultural conduit. Long before ground-penetrating radar, these traditions kept the flame of the idea alive in the Western imagination. They were not looking for a physical door under the sand. They were seeking a metaphysical key within their own rituals and symbols, a figure like Manly P. Hall, the influential 20th century mystic and author, embodied this intellectual lineage. In his seminal work, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, he devoted entire chapters to Egypt, portraying the Sphinx as the silent guardian of the ages, a monument built to outlast empires and preserve arcane truths through symbolic language alone. He and others like him built a parallel map of Giza, one charted not with surveying tools but with allegory and numerology. This created a fascinating duality in the search. For centuries, two distinct quests ran side by side, one physical and archaeological, the other philosophical and symbolic. The Freemason carving a Sphinx symbol into a lodge medallion was, in his own way, attempting the same thing as an explorer digging at the base of the statue. Both were seeking entry to a hidden chamber of knowledge. This esoteric thread demonstrates the monument's astonishing power to transcend its own geography and stone. It ceased to be merely an Egyptian artifact and became a global icon of the perennial quest, a silent partner in humanity's enduring dialogue about where wisdom comes from and how it is preserved. The search moved from the desert into the library, from the material into the metaphysical, proving that some treasures are pursued not with shovels but with the mind. A drill bit touches the ancient limestone, its whirring vibration the first new sound in this silent space for millennia. This is the critical threshold, the moment where exploration meets an irrevocable choice. The ethical dilemma at the heart of this mystery is not about capability but about conscience. Do we have the right to open what was so deliberately sealed? The arguments for excavation are powerful and human. The pursuit of knowledge drives our entire species forward. If a chamber exists, what we could learn might rewrite chapters of human history, offering insights into lost technologies, forgotten languages, or the very origins of civilization. The potential to answer questions that have haunted us for centuries is an almost irresistible call. We see this drive in the legacy of figures like Howard Carter, whose work revealed the splendors of Tutankhamun's tomb. The world gained immeasurable beauty and historical detail from that intrusion, a glimpse into a pharaoh's world, yet that same story carries a warning. The famous curse aside, the rapid exposure to modern air and bacteria contributed to the deterioration of some organic artifacts. The very act of discovery began a process of loss. This is the preservationist's core argument that excavation is inherently destructive. Once you break a seal that has held for thousands of years, you cannot restore the original conditions. The microclimate inside a sealed space, a perfect balance of humidity and stillness, is shattered in an instant. Delicate materials, whether papyrus, crystalline tablets, or even painted walls, can crumble to dust before our eyes. There is also the very real risk of compromising the structural integrity of the Sphinx itself, a monument already battling erosion and groundwater. Beyond physical damage lies a philosophical principle, the wisdom of patience. Technology advances at a breathtaking pace. The Muon tomography we use today will seem primitive in 50 years. Future generations may have tools that allow them to see inside a chamber without ever piercing its walls, to read its contents through solid stone. By waiting, we preserve the option for a non-invasive revelation. So we are left with a profound question about our relationship with time. Is our curiosity, however noble, a sufficient reason to potentially destroy a legacy meant for eternity. Some knowledge may carry a sacred weight, a responsibility for which we are not yet prepared. The fate of the Hall of Records, if it is ever found, may depend less on our engineering and more on our humility, on recognizing that some doors are not meant to be opened by our generation, but simply known to exist, a testament to the patience of history itself. The legend of the hidden chamber did not stay confined to dusty journals or academic debates. It escaped into the wild, finding fertile ground in the vibrant pages of pulp magazines and later the glowing screens of Hollywood. Writers of speculative fiction, always hungry for a compelling mystery, seized upon the idea with gusto. Perhaps the most influential early adopter was H.P. Lovecraft, the master of cosmic horror. In his stories, he wove tales of a prehistoric, non-human race he called the Great Old Ones, whose cyclopean ruins lay buried beneath the deserts. While Lovecraft never named the Sphinx directly, his themes of ancient, buried knowledge and forgotten civilizations waiting to be unearthed created a perfect literary template. He established a tone of awe and dread around the idea of uncovering truths humanity was not meant to know, a sentiment that would cling to the Hall of Records legend for decades. This literary seed blossomed into a full-blown pop culture phenomenon. The concept reached its widest audience through blockbuster cinema. The film Stargate presented a dazzling fusion of Cayce's vision and science fiction, reimagining the Giza plateau as a literal gateway to the stars, with ancient Egyptian gods as alien travelers. Here, the mystery was not just solved, it was exploded into an interstellar adventure, suggesting the chamber held not records but technology. Similarly, movies like Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen placed the fate of the world inside a hidden chamber beneath the Sphinx, portraying it as a weapon or a key of immense power. These portrayals do more than entertain, they actively reshape public perception. They blend Edgar Cayce's spiritual prophecy with the visual language of advanced technology and interstellar conflict, creating a potent modern myth. The Hall of Records is no longer just a library, it is an arsenal, a control room, a puzzle box holding the secret to humanity's destiny. This cultural echo chamber performs a crucial function. It keeps the mystery alive and burning in the global imagination, completely independent of any archaeological discovery or lack thereof. It creates a powerful feedback loop where a viewer, captivated by a film's depiction, might then seek out the real history, funding books, documentaries, and even supporting research initiatives. The Sphinx, therefore, exists in a fascinating duality. It is both a physical, weathering monument of limestone on the Giza plateau and a malleable icon in the landscape of our collective dreams. Each realm informs the other. The real monument gives weight and gravity to the fictional tales, while the stories pour endless layers of meaning and possibility back onto the silent stones. This cultural life ensures that even if every scientific survey came back negative, the legend would persist, a testament to our enduring need for a secret just beyond reach, a truth waiting in the dark to redefine everything we think we know. Yet this powerful idea did not originate in Egypt alone. From the frozen libraries of Russia to the overgrown temples of the Americas, cultures across the world have whispered of the same hidden treasure. The story of the Hall of Records is not an isolated myth, but a single note in a global chorus, a recurring dream humanity has about its own forgotten past. Consider the legend of the lost library of Ivan the Terrible. This 16th century Russian Tsar was said to have amassed a vast, secret collection of ancient manuscripts and scrolls, possibly even including texts from the Library of Constantinople. After his passing, this priceless archive vanished without a trace, rumored to be hidden in a sealed underground chamber beneath the Moscow Kremlin. For centuries, explorers and even Soviet officials have searched, hoping to find a room that could rewrite Slavic history. Far across the ocean, the ancient Maya left behind breathtaking pyramids and a complex calendar, but their own written records largely did not survive the colonial period. Scholars speak of a profound cultural loss, a missing archive of Mayan knowledge that could fully explain their astronomical precision and spiritual cosmology. This absence itself has become a kind of ghostly hall of records, a void that prompts endless speculation about what was known and then lost. Then there is the concept from Eastern philosophy known as the Akashic Records. This is not a physical library, but a theoretical compendium of all universal events, thoughts, and experiences encoded in a non-physical dimension, a sort of cosmic memory field. It is the ultimate hall of records, one that can supposedly be accessed not through excavation, but through heightened spiritual consciousness. When we place the Sphinx's secret beside these other legends, a profound pattern emerges. It is the archetype of the hidden repository. Whether it is a Tsar's basement, a burned Mayan codex, or an ethereal field of information, the core narrative is identical. A golden age of wisdom is lost to time, catastrophe, or deliberate concealment. The crucial knowledge from that age was preserved by the wise, sealed away in a protected location, physical or metaphysical. And it is destined to be found again, not by chance, but when humanity reaches a point of crisis or maturity that demands that forgotten truth. This is not merely about archaeology, it is about psychology and hope. These stories reveal a deep-seated human belief that our errors, our falls from grace, are not permanent. Somewhere, a backup copy of our greatest potential exists. The hidden chamber is a symbol of collective memory, a promise that what has been lost can be recovered, that ignorance is not a final state. By seeing the Egyptian mystery within this global tapestry, its power multiplies. It transforms from a local puzzle about a statue into a universal expression of a very human yearning to reconnect with a wisdom we feel we once possessed but can no longer fully grasp. The sands of Giza, therefore, hold a mirror to every culture that has ever dreamed of finding a key to its own origins. Every visitor who gazes up at the weathered face is not just seeing a monument, they are stepping into a story. The legend of the hidden chamber is more than a historical puzzle. It is a powerful economic engine, one that shapes the very experience of Giza. From the moment a tourist buys a ticket, boards a camel, or hires a guide, they are participating in a mystery industry built over generations. The promise of an unsolved secret adds an undeniable allure, transforming a historical site into a destination of potential discovery. This creates a delicate dance for the Egyptian authorities, who must carefully manage a world-famous brand. On one hand, they promote the Sphinx as an icon of ancient wonder, a place where history feels alive with possibility, a strategy that draws millions of visitors whose spending supports local communities and national heritage projects. On the other, they must uphold academic integrity, ensuring the narrative does not stray completely into fantasy, which could undermine the site's scholarly significance. It is a balancing act between enchantment and education, where a hint of mystery can be more valuable than a confirmed fact. This economic ripple extends far beyond the ticket booth. The unanswered question fuels an entire ecosystem of media and commerce. Television networks fund high-budget documentaries that send crews with the latest scanning technology, promising viewers a chance to witness a potential breakthrough. Publishers release stacks of books each year, ranging from sober academic analyses to speculative theories that fill bookstore shelves. A vibrant circuit of conferences and lectures supports independent researchers, authors, and speakers who analyze every new radar scan or historical text, their work sustained by an audience eager for the next clue. This financial support is a double-edged sword. It provides resources for legitimate scientific surveys that might otherwise lack funding, pushing the boundaries of non-invasive archaeology. Yet, the same market can also incentivize sensationalism, where vague data is presented as definitive proof to sell books or attract viewers, sometimes clouding the public's understanding of the actual evidence. The mystery, in essence, has a measurable price tag, and its commercial value ensures the story remains in the global spotlight, constantly renewed. Ultimately, the search persists with such fervor because it exists at this unique intersection of art and commerce. It is a romance that pays its own way. The economic engine ensures the legend is never forgotten, continually repackaged and presented to new generations. This commercial layer adds a final, modern complexity to our understanding of the guardian on the plateau. The Sphinx is not only a relic to be studied, but a symbol to be marketed, a story to be sold, and a dream to be experienced. The silent watcher thus fulfills a role its builders could never have anticipated, serving as both a monument to a lost world and a cornerstone of a very modern world of global curiosity, where the greatest treasure may be the enduring question itself. The year was 1798, and the sands of Egypt felt the tread of an army unlike any before. Napoleon Bonaparte arrived with cannons and soldiers, but also with a secret weapon of a different kind, a corps of 167 scholars, engineers, and artists known as the savants. Their mission was not just conquest but cataloging, to systematically document a land that existed in the European imagination more as a biblical backdrop than a real place. When they first approached the Giza plateau, the scene that greeted them was haunting. The Great Sphinx was not the exposed icon we know today, but a creature half consumed by the desert, buried up to its shoulders in a vast sea of sand. Only the immense, enigmatic head and a stretch of its back broke the surface, a stone island in a golden ocean. The pyramids, though fully visible, stood as silent, geometric giants in a landscape devoid of context. For these men of the Enlightenment, this was not a mystical shrine, it was a scientific problem to be solved. They set to work with surveying chains, sketching pencils, and a relentless empirical drive. They measured every angle, mapped every contour, and produced hundreds of exquisitely detailed plates that would later be published in their monumental work, the Description de l'Egypte. This was more than a book, it was a revelation, a 23-volume atlas that reintroduced the ancient wonders to the modern world with a precision never before seen. In their meticulous drawings, the Sphinx was recorded not as a legend, but as a measurable object, its proportions captured, its weathering noted, its partially buried state documented for all to see. While their focus was on the visible, on creating a cartographic baseline, they inadvertently did something profound. By stripping away the layers of myth and presenting the monuments as subjects for rational study, they laid the very groundwork for all future exploration. They created the first reliable map, and in doing so, they translated the site from a setting of fable into a field of inquiry. The savants were not looking for a hidden chamber. Their quest was to bring what was above the sand into the light of understanding. Yet that act of careful, systematic observation was the essential first step. It established a coordinate grid of reality upon which later generations could plot their dreams of what might lie beneath. This moment marks the true birth of the modern mystery, the shift from wondering about the Sphinx in stories to studying the Sphinx as a structure. The Enlightenment ideal they embodied, that knowledge comes from measurement and observation, would eventually turn its instruments downward, from mapping the shoulders of the guardian to questioning what those shoulders might be guarding. Their legacy was a simple, powerful transformation. They turned a monument back into a mystery, not through speculation, but through the sheer, undeniable weight of documented fact. A new century dawned, and with it came a man whose approach was the very opposite of the measured savants. Giovanni Battista Caviglia was a former sea captain, a figure of relentless energy and stubborn will, driven not by academic curiosity, but by a potent mix of treasure-hunting zeal and a personal conviction that the pyramids held hidden chambers of unimaginable wealth. In 1817, he turned his attention to the Sphinx, not because he sought its wisdom, but because he saw it as a possible gateway to the riches he believed lay within the second pyramid. The monument he faced was still a prisoner of the dunes, buried to its neck, a silent giant half submerged in time. Caviglia assembled a large team of local laborers and began the back-breaking, sun-scorched work of moving the desert itself. This was not a delicate archaeological dig. It was an assault on the sand, a brute force excavation fueled by sheer determination. For months, his team toiled, shoveling and hauling away countless tons of sand, gradually revealing what no living person had likely ever seen: the colossal chest and the massive, outstretched forepaws of the guardian. The scale of the task was staggering, a vivid demonstration of how completely the desert could swallow even the greatest of monuments. When the sand finally cleared from around the base of the paws, Caviglia made his first significant discovery. Between the paws, he found a large stone stele, an inscribed slab now known as the Dream Stele of Thutmose IV. This pharaoh's inscription told of a young prince who, resting in the shadow of the Sphinx, was promised the throne in a dream if he cleared the sand from the statue. This ancient text, lying in the very spot Caviglia had just uncovered, created a poetic echo across millennia, linking his own gritty labor to a royal decree from over 3,000 years earlier. Yet for Caviglia, the stele was a disappointment. It was not a map to a treasure chamber. Frustrated, he began digging down around the paws and the base of the monument, his picks and shovels probing for any crack or hollow that might lead inward. He did find a small, recessed area on the Sphinx's back, but his crude methods revealed no grand entrance, no descending staircase, only more solid limestone. His excavations, while historically important, were ultimately limited in scope and driven by a singular goal. He proved the monumental effort required just to see the Sphinx fully, and he demonstrated, albeit unintentionally, that finding a potential chamber would require more than muscle and hope. It would require a systematic strategy he did not possess. Caviglia's legacy is a pivotal, gritty chapter in the story, marking the transition from distant observation to physical interaction. He was the first in the modern era to lay hands on the Sphinx with the explicit intent of finding what was inside, setting a tangible, if flawed, precedent for all the seekers who would follow. His work whispered a crucial lesson into the dry wind, that the desert guards its secrets not with locks, but with an immense, patient weight of sand and stone. The desert had yielded its captive, but the guardian was crumbling. By the early 20th century, the Sphinx stood fully exposed yet dangerously fragile, its body a patchwork of ancient stone and deep erosion, vulnerable to the elements it had endured for millennia. The task of saving it fell to a meticulous French engineer named Émile Barrès. In 1925, under the authority of the Egyptian Antiquities Service, he launched what remains the most ambitious restoration project in the monument's long history, a labor that would consume 11 years. Barrès' approach was that of a structural engineer facing a monumental crisis. This was not a treasure hunt, it was a rescue mission. His teams worked methodically, clearing the last stubborn drifts of sand from the enclosure floor and systematically propping up the most unstable sections of the statue's body with thousands of blocks of new masonry. They filled deep fissures and shored up the crumbling haunches, essentially constructing a supportive exoskeleton around the most damaged parts of the ancient core. For the first time in possibly centuries, the entire leonine form and the sheer walls of its pit were laid bare to modern scrutiny, a clean archaeological canvas. During this painstaking process, Barrès' workers did encounter openings in the rock. They found small cavities and niches within the enclosure walls and around the base, spaces that appeared ritualistic in nature, perhaps meant for devotional offerings or symbolic purposes. But crucially, they found no grand descending corridor, no hidden doorway leading into a vast subterranean hall. The significance of Barré's work, however, transcended those empty cavities. By stabilizing the structure and clearing the site so completely, he performed an essential, if unglamorous, service to history. He created the stable, accessible site that every future researcher would depend upon. His clearance allowed for the first complete photographic records, detailed architectural plans, and crucially, enabled geologists to walk the entire enclosure and examine the weathering patterns on the walls and the Sphinx itself with unprecedented clarity. This direct access is what made the later water erosion debate possible. Scholars like Robert Schoch could study the very stones Barrés had stabilized. Similarly, modern geophysical surveys rely on a clear, defined ground plane to place their equipment, a condition his work provided, yet his methods were not without controversy. The copious use of modern Portland cement for repairs, standard for its time, is now seen as problematic by conservators, as it interacts differently with the ancient limestone and can trap moisture. In a way, Barré's restoration froze the Sphinx in a specific moment, presenting a 20th-century vision of stability that fixed its image in the global imagination as a restored, eternal monument, rather than a decaying relic. His legacy is therefore one of profound contradiction. He saved the Sphinx from immediate collapse using techniques later questioned, and while he found no legendary chamber, he prepared the stage for all the technological searches that would follow. He turned a crumbling mystery into a solid question, ensuring that future generations would seek their answers not in sand, but in science. Its form is a riddle carved in stone, a fusion of two worlds. The body of a lion, massive and grounded, supports the serene, watchful head of a human. This is not a random artistic choice, it is a dense, symbolic language. In the ancient world, the lion was the ultimate emblem of terrestrial power, solar fire, and regal authority. It was linked to the sun god, its mane like the radiating sun, its strength untamed. The constellation Leo, rising with the sun at a pivotal time of year, cemented this celestial connection, making the lion a bridge between the earth and the sky. The human head, in contrast, represents the pinnacle of consciousness, intellect, and sovereign will, the capacity to reason, to rule, and to understand. By merging them, the creators of the Sphinx presented a visual thesis on the nature of true guardianship. This is not a monster, but a perfected being, one where immense physical and instinctual power is directed by a calm, knowing intelligence. The animal is not suppressed, it is harnessed, becoming the foundation for a higher purpose. This symbolism resonated deeply through later esoteric traditions, particularly alchemy, which sought the transmutation of base materials into spiritual gold. For the alchemist, the Sphinx became the ultimate allegory for the great work, the internal process of mastering one's own lower, passionate nature, the inner lion, and elevating it through the light of the awakened mind. The chaos of instinct is ordered by consciousness, the two halves integrated into a single, harmonious whole. This interpretation casts an entirely new light on the legend of the hidden chamber. If the Sphinx is the guardian, then what is the key? Perhaps it is not a physical artifact to be found, but an inner state to be achieved. The path to the Hall of Records, in this view, becomes an initiatory journey. To access the repository of universal wisdom, one must first reconcile the opposing forces within oneself, achieving that alchemical equilibrium where instinct serves insight and power is tempered by wisdom. The guardian then transforms from a mere physical obstacle into a psychological and spiritual threshold. It asks a silent question of every seeker, whether they come with shovels or with sincere curiosity. Have you mastered your own inner landscape? Are you prepared, not just in knowledge but in being, to receive what might be preserved? This perspective elegantly reframes the centuries-long external search into an internal one. It suggests that the true chamber, the real hall of records, might be a metaphor for an enlightened state of consciousness, a unified awareness unlocked only through the integration of our own dual nature. The treasure is not something you find, but something you become. This does not negate the possibility of a physical space beneath the sands, but it adds a profound parallel dimension to the mystery. It implies that even if a sealed room were discovered tomorrow, its deepest contents, its ultimate meaning, might only be fully comprehensible to a consciousness that has, in its own way, solved the riddle of the guardian at the gate. Silence is not the absence of sound, but a field of potential. What if the Great Sphinx was never meant to be silent? Beyond the visual symbolism lies a more subtle, vibrational layer to its design, a theory that reimagines the entire Giza plateau not just as a cemetery or an observatory, but as a grand acoustic instrument. This idea springs from a tangible, measurable phenomenon in the neighboring Great Pyramid. Researchers have long noted the extraordinary sonic properties of the King's Chamber, the granite-lined room deep within the pyramid's heart. The chamber's dimensions, the materials used, everything seems tuned. When specific tones are produced inside it, the space resonates powerfully, creating a profound, immersive experience that seems to vibrate through the very bones of the listener. This is not an accident of architecture, it appears to be an intentional feature. It suggests the ancient builders possessed a deep, practical understanding of resonance, the principle where a sound wave of the right frequency can cause a structure to vibrate in sympathy, amplifying and sustaining the energy. If this knowledge was applied to the pyramid, why not to its guardian? The speculation is captivating. Could the Sphinx, with its hollowed-out interior chambers speculated by radar, have been designed to resonate like a giant stone bell? Or perhaps the fabled Hall of Records, if it exists, is not a library to be read with the eyes, but a resonance chamber to be experienced with the entire body, activated by a specific harmonic key. This connects to ancient traditions found across the world, from the chanting of Tibetan monks to the sacred songs of indigenous cultures, all speaking of sound as a creative, healing, and transformative force. Modern science gives us a glimpse into this possibility through cymatics, the study of visible sound. When sand or water is placed on a metal plate and a specific frequency is played, the particles arrange themselves into intricate geometric patterns. Sound literally shapes matter. Could an advanced application of this principle, using powerful, focused resonance, have been used in the construction of these monumental sites, a lost technology of sonic levitation or precision stone cutting? While this remains firmly in the realm of speculative theory, it opens a breathtaking dimension to the mystery. It moves the conversation from what the builders built to how they might have built it, and for what experiential purpose. The search shifts from seeking a door to seeking a note, a forgotten frequency that might still echo in the stone. This perspective does not discard the physical search, but layers it with a profound new question. Perhaps the ultimate record left behind is not information etched on a tablet, but a technology encoded in the architecture itself, a vibrational wisdom waiting not for a scholar to decipher it, but for a musician to play it once more. The Guardian has survived desert winds for millennia, but its newest adversary is one it cannot outwait. The climate of our planet is shifting, and the consequences are being felt even in the heart of the ancient desert. Rising groundwater levels driven by changing weather patterns and nearby urban development now pose a silent, creeping threat to the entire Giza plateau. This is not a distant possibility, it is a present reality. Water, the very element that may have shaped the Sphinx in a forgotten wet age, now returns as a potential agent of its decay. As the water table rises, it brings with it dissolved salts from the earth. When this saline water seeps into the limestone bedrock, it evaporates, leaving behind crystalline deposits that expand inside the stone's microscopic pores. This process, called salt crystallization, acts like a miniature, relentless force, slowly pushing the rock apart from within, causing it to flake and crumble. The Sphinx's paws, the very foundation where legends place an entrance, are on the front line of this invisible battle. The integrity of any potential chamber below is inextricably linked to the stability of the stone above it. A hidden room, preserved in a perfect dry state for thousands of years, could be flooded or structurally compromised by this rising damp long before we ever peer inside. Compounding this threat is the very breath of our modern world. Air pollution from the dense sprawl of nearby Cairo carries acidic particles that settle on the ancient stone. When combined with morning dew, these pollutants form a weak acidic solution that etches away at the limestone surface, accelerating erosion far faster than natural desert sands ever could. Then there is the physical weight of admiration, the immense pressure of mass tourism. While vital for the local economy, the constant vibration from thousands of footsteps, the humidity from the breath of crowds within the enclosure, and the general wear all place a cumulative stress on the monument. Conservation is no longer just about restoring the past. It is a complex engineering race against a converging array of modern threats. Teams of experts now monitor the Sphinx with laser scanners and humidity sensors, creating digital models to track the slightest movement or crack. Their work is a poignant counterpoint to the search for hidden chambers. While some look for what might be found, these conservators fight to protect what is already and undeniably here. This creates a profound and urgent irony. Our civilization, armed with unprecedented technology, seeks the wisdom of a past one with great fervor. Yet, the collective impact of that same civilization, through its altered climate and its footprint of visitation, may be the very force that destroys the vessel containing that wisdom before the search is complete. The quest has entered a critical new phase where discovery and preservation are now two sides of the same coin. Any future attempt to access a subterranean space must be planned with the precision of a surgeon, ensuring that the act of finding does not become the cause of losing. The greatest secret the Sphinx may yet hold is a lesson in responsibility, a test of whether we can become guardians worthy of the legacy we so desperately wish to uncover. The race is no longer just against time, but against the consequences of our own era. The true power of the legend lies not in what it hides, but in what it reveals about us. Beyond the radar scans and historical debates, the story of the Hall of Records fulfills a profound and very human need. It offers a specific kind of origin story, one where our beginnings are not primitive or accidental, but seeded with purpose and profound knowledge. The idea of a lost golden age, a time when an advanced civilization grasped truths we have since forgotten, serves as a powerful antidote to a modern sense of fragmentation. It whispers that our current struggles with environmental challenges, social discord, or a feeling of spiritual emptiness are not inevitable, but perhaps the result of a great forgetting. The chamber, therefore, becomes more than an archaeological site. It transforms into a promise. It suggests that the solutions to our most pressing crises are not ahead of us, waiting to be invented, but behind us, waiting to be remembered. This narrative provides a compelling sense of hope, a belief that our greatest wisdom is not lost, merely misplaced, and that its recovery could realign our entire trajectory. On a more personal level, the mystery itself is the engine. In a world often defined by routine and overwhelming information, the quest provides a clean, singular narrative of adventure. It is a puzzle with a world-altering payoff, a story where an individual or a team, through perseverance and insight, could crack a code that changes everything. This is the ultimate treasure hunt, one where the treasure is not gold but understanding. It counteracts the mundane with the monumental. Furthermore, in our digital age of endless, conflicting data streams, the concept of a single, definitive source of truth is irresistibly attractive. The Hall of Records represents the antithesis of the internet's noise, a curated, pristine archive of essential knowledge. It is the fantasy of a perfect library where the signal is pure and the answers are final. This enduring fascination, then, is a mirror. The centuries-long search for a chamber beneath the sand tells us as much about our own contemporary anxieties and yearnings as it does about ancient Egyptian beliefs. We are not merely looking for a room, we are searching for an anchor point in time, for a story that makes sense of our journey, and for a whisper of confirmation that our potential for greatness is not just a dream, but a legacy waiting to be reclaimed. Separate clues can be ambiguous, but patterns are far more difficult to ignore. When we step back and view the entire tapestry, the threads of geology, symbolism, and human longing begin to weave a startlingly coherent picture. Let us construct a plausible narrative from the evidence we have walked through. It begins not with the pharaohs, but in a forgotten epoch. A sophisticated culture, thriving in a wetter, greener Sahara, develops profound knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and perhaps a spiritual philosophy centered on cosmic harmony. They see a change coming, a gradual desiccation of their world. Faced with the slow fade of their civilization, they make a monumental decision to preserve their core legacy. They select a site of immense geodetic and astronomical significance, the Giza Plateau. There, they carve a guardian from the living bedrock, its leonine body aligned with the constellation Leo to mark a specific celestial moment, its human head representing the guiding consciousness of their people. This sphinx is not a portrait of a king, but a symbol of integrated guardianship for the ages. Beneath its paws, they construct a secure, climate-controlled chamber, a true hall of records. Within, they deposit the essence of their knowledge, perhaps on durable materials like etched crystal or fired clay, a time capsule meant not for their children, but for a distant future humanity. As their culture recedes into prehistory, the memory of this vault survives in oral tradition, morphing into myth. Millennia later, the emerging dynastic Egyptians discover this ancient, weathered colossus. They recognize its power and sanctity, adopting it into their own pantheon as Horus of the horizon. The old legends of a hidden wisdom are absorbed into their emerging mystery schools, becoming the esoteric core of what figures like the sleeping prophet would later tap into. The structure itself is maintained, restored by pharaohs like Thutmose IV, its original purpose shrouded but its symbolic potency amplified. Fast forward to our modern era. The legend persists, now filtered through psychic readings, encoded in secret society rituals, and amplified by global pop culture. Scientific surveys, from seismology to muon tomography, detect anomalies that align eerily with the old stories, hints of voids that cannot be easily explained by natural geology alone. The search is shaped by modern realities, bureaucratic guardianship, the ethics of preservation, and the economic engine of tourism, all reflecting our own society's complex relationship with the past. This synthesized narrative does not prove anything, but it demonstrates why the mystery endures. No single piece of evidence, the water erosion, Cayce's vision, the radar anomalies, or the symbolic power, is definitive on its own. Yet together, they form an interlocking pattern of clues that point insistently toward a single, profound possibility. The story feels coherent because it answers so many persistent questions: why a monument of such age and weathering exists, why so many disparate cultures tell versions of the same hidden repository myth, and why our technology keeps hinting at emptiness where there should be solid earth. This synthesis makes the search for the chamber beneath the Sphinx not a fringe pursuit, but the latest, most technologically advanced chapter in a story that may be as old as civilization itself. A story we are still trying to read by the light of our science and the echoes of our deepest myths. The next chapter of this mystery may not be written by a single nation or a secretive expedition. It could be authored by all of us through a radical shift toward open science and global collaboration. Picture a future where the search for the chamber is not a race for a headline, but a shared, transparent project of human curiosity. A permanent international consortium is established, uniting the world's leading geologists, archaeologists, physicists, and engineers under a single public mandate. Their mission is simple: to apply every non-invasive technology available to map the substructure of the Giza plateau with unprecedented clarity, and to share every single data point in real time with the global community. Imagine live streaming a Muon tomography scan, or publishing raw ground-penetrating radar data on an open-access platform where citizens, scientists, and academics alike can analyze the results. This model would fundamentally change the dynamic of the search. It moves the process from behind closed doors into the light of collective scrutiny, building immense public trust and mitigating the political and bureaucratic friction that has often slowed or obscured past efforts. Funding could come through transparent crowdfunding campaigns, where people from every corner of the world contribute not just money, but a sense of shared ownership in a discovery that belongs to our collective heritage. Every finding would undergo open peer review, debated and verified by a global network of experts before any conclusion is reached. This collaborative framework does more than accelerate discovery. It prepares us for the monumental ethical decisions that would follow a confirmed find. If a sealed, man-made void of significant size is definitively mapped, what happens next? The decision to excavate or to preserve in place would no longer rest with a single entity. Instead, a pre-established, internationally agreed-upon protocol, developed with input from ethicists, conservators, and cultural representatives, would guide the next steps. The Sphinx would be treated not as a national secret or the prize of a lone adventurer, but as a unique chapter in the story of humanity, a chapter whose final sentences we have a responsibility to read together. This spirit of open collaboration may be the most sophisticated key we ever forge, one that unlocks not just a chamber, but a new way of honoring our shared past. Our journey has taken us from the visions of a sleeping prophet to the silent reign of cosmic particles, and along the way we have discovered something profound. The search for the secret chamber is not merely a hunt for a hidden room, it is a reflection of something timeless within us. It is a story about our hunger to understand where we come from, our hope that our ancestors were wiser than we know, and our deep-seated belief that the past holds a key to our future. We have seen geologists argue over water and wind, watched as bureaucracy and belief collided over every permit, and listened as the Sphinx itself whispered its symbolic language of lion and human, earth and sky. Each layer of this mystery, from the tangible to the theoretical, reveals that the legend persists precisely because it exists in that fertile borderland where hard evidence meets the boundless terrain of human imagination. Whether a physical archive of crystalline tablets awaits in the dark, or the true record is encoded in the monument's celestial alignments and harmonic geometry, the quest itself has already yielded a treasure. It has pushed the boundaries of non-invasive archaeology, sparked global conversations about our shared heritage, and challenged us to think more deeply about the nature of wisdom itself. The sands of time will continue their slow dance across the Giza plateau, and the Guardian will keep its eternal watch, its weathered face a silent question posed to every generation. It asks us not just to look, but to see, not just to dig, but to wonder. The greatest discovery we might ever make beneath the Sphinx could be the realization that some mysteries are not meant to be solved quickly, but to be contemplated fully, reminding us that the journey toward understanding is often more valuable than the destination. If this exploration has sparked your own curiosity, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe for more journeys into history's most captivating enigmas, and remember, The next great revelation often begins with a single, unanswered question.